Hi everyone, welcome back. Today I'm doing something a little bit different, something a bit informal. I thought I'd do the Goodreads tag. I thought this would be a good way to show you what I'm reading at the moment, the kind of things that are going to be coming up in future videos, and just to have a more general chat about books. With that out of the way, let's get on to the first question. First question is, what is the last book that you marked as read? The last book that I marked as read was The Mysteries of Udolpho by Anne Radcliffe. The Mysteries of Udolpho is a classic in Gothic fiction. It's a huge book, and it took me a very long time to get through it, but it was really great. And if any of you are interested in classic Gothic fiction, then this is kind of the grandmother of the genre. Anne Radcliffe inspired pretty much all the familiar names that you might know, from Bram Stoker to Matthew Gregory Lewis, Marquis de Sade. Basically, everyone has some kind of debt to this book. So if you like the genre, this is definitely something to read. But I wouldn't start there because, like I said, it's a tough book. It's a lot, and it's challenging but rewarding. So definitely glad that I read it and would recommend. Next question is, what are you currently reading? So usually I read multiple books at the same time because I find I read more if I do that, because if there's like a lull in a book and I'm not reading anything else, I'll just not read it all. Whereas if I've got some books, other books on the back burner, I can kind of switch. If a book's getting boring, I can flip and between a few. So I read a few books at once. At the moment, in terms of horror, I'm reading Salem's Lot by Stephen King, which I've just started, so I don't have much to say, except I'm liking what I'm seeing so far. For a reading club that I'm part of, we're reading A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens, which is great. I know the story, we all know the story, right? And that's a pleasant enough read. It's a good little story, and I like Dickens a lot. In terms of fantasy, I just got the audiobook of The Lies of Locke Lamora, which I'm finding to be great, and I think this is going to be one of my favourite fantasy novels for sure, and I'm looking forward to reviewing that probably in early January on the channel. The next question is, what was the last book you marked as to be read? The last book I marked as to be read was The Fairy Queen by Edmund Spenser. This is a medieval epic poem that I came across I was just kind of doing an internet binge and just came across it, someone talking about it on a blog or something, and it's a medieval poem and sort of fantasy-esque, and it just looked really interesting to me, so I marked it as something to read probably very soon, because I'm thinking of maybe picking this for the book club that I'm part of. The next question is, what is the next book that you plan to read? The next book that I'm planning to read is actually by an independent author called Mark R. Mitchell, and the book is called Cold Moonlight. Recently I made the decision to try to incorporate reviews specifically from indie authors as a way to support the indie author community, and this book was something that stood out to me, and is the first book that I hope to review if I enjoy it. Next question is, do you use the star rating system? So for those of you who don't use Goodreads, it has a star rating system, and the answer to this question is yes, I do use the star rating system. Not much more to say on that, but I do sometimes also write reviews on Goodreads. Sometimes those reviews are kind of templates for my video reviews, so it's a nice little tool to kind of get me thinking about my thoughts of a book, and then develop those into videos that I make. Are you doing a 2019 reading challenge? So again, on Goodreads, if you want, at the beginning of every year you can basically set yourself a reading challenge, which is to say you pick a certain amount of books that you want to read in the year, and then at the end of the year you either you meet the target or you don't. This year I decided to set myself a challenge of 30 books, and I'm now at 41. I'm hoping to get to 45. We'll see if I can manage that many books in a very short span of time. But either way, I've done the challenge, and I'll definitely be doing that again next year. Next question, do you have a wish list? Nope, I don't have a wish list. I have my to-be-read list on Goodreads, and that's pretty much it. I'm just a bit scatterbrained and don't make lists very often, so no. On to the next question then, which is, what is the next book that you plan to buy? The next book that I'm planning to buy is a book that I've already mentioned. It's The Fairy Queen by Edmund Spenser. I'm thinking about picking this for my book club, but usually before I pick something for that club, I like to read the text first to see if it's any good, to see if it'll fit with the people in the club. So I'm probably going to buy that next and have a little gloss and see what I think of it. Next question, do you have any favourite author quotes? There's one quote in particular that I have in mind from a book that I actually reviewed on this channel a while ago, The Tenant of Wildfell Hall by Anne Bronte. Most of the time I'm pretty forgetful when it comes to remembering specific quotes, but since doing this channel and reviewing things, I tended to underline things more, and sometimes there are things that stand out to me, and one passage, it's probably more of a passage than a quote, that stood out to me was a passage from The Tenant of Wildfell Hall by Anne Bronte, where the main character in that novel basically says a little speech which turns into a marriage proposal, but also summarises everything she's gone through in the story and her character, and I think it's a really beautiful passage, and it's just a perfect summation of that novel. This rose is not so fragrant as a summer flower, but it has stood through hardships that none of them could bear. The cold rain of winter has sufficed to nourish it, and its faint sun to warm it. The bleak winds have not blanched it or broken it, and the keen frost has not blighted it. Look, Gilbert, it is still fresh and blooming as a flower could be, with the cold snow even now upon its petals. Will you have it? Again, I just think that's a really sweet marriage proposal, and if you read that novel, it's a passage that will just stand out to you as a perfect encapsulation of that novel. Really good novel, and you should read it. The next question is, who are your favourite authors? A few people spring to mind here, some each in different genres. So in terms of fantasy, Robert Jordan with The Wheel of Time is definitely one of my favourites. In terms of fantasy, but also just more general fiction, she does gothic, she does fantasy, she does dystopia. Angela Carter, I think she's probably my favourite writer at the moment, and is someone who I'm definitely looking to dig deeper on into this channel in the future. In terms of classics, definitely E.M. Forster at the moment, and in terms of horror, definitely Clive Barker. Have you joined any groups on Goodreads? Yep, I've joined 2 groups on Goodreads, the Fantasy Book Club and the Gothic Fiction Book Club. Joining those groups is a good way to, again, get recommendations for different books, and because I don't keep lists, that's usually how I learn about new books, is by either joining a book club or discussing things with people and getting recommendations from them. So it's a really good way for me to excuse me. It's a really good way for me to learn about new books and new things to read. Final question is, are there any questions that you would like to add? I suppose if I was to think about it, one good question to add to the list would be something like, what would you change about Goodreads, or what things about Goodreads don't you like? And if I was to answer that question, I would say that I do think the interface is a little bit clunky. There's a bit of a disconnect between how the website works and how the app works. It'd also be good if you could rate things by using half stars rather than just whole stars, because sometimes I do kind of want to be a bit more subtle in my marking of a novel. That being said though, Goodreads is a really great website, and if you don't use it, I definitely recommend giving it a try, giving it a look. It's a great way to track how many books you're reading, it's a great way to find other books to read, and again, you can create lists and all these kinds of things, so it's definitely worth, if you haven't, not aware of Goodreads, which you probably are because it's relatively well known among readers I think, but definitely give it a try if you haven't already. Okay, that's it for today's video. If you like this video, please like and subscribe for more content. Also, let me know in the comments what you think of this video, and also if you have any other tags or booktuber tags that you think are interesting or that you'd like me to have a go at, let me know, because I've enjoyed making this video and I definitely like to do more of these discussion-based videos in the future. That's it for this video though guys, so take care and I'll see you all next time.